Lie number 4, marriage is slavery and children are a burden, and the only way that we could reach our highest potential was through our work. This cultural push has unfortunately created an epidemic of loneliness, nihilism, but worst of all, it has turned men and women into enemies. Those very same feminists now argue for government-paid maternity leave, subsidized childcare, and many other safety nets to improve the lives of women. But before feminism, a woman didn't need to turn to the government for help. Instead, she turned to her husband, to her family, to her community. Marriage is not this predatory institution where men get a servant for life. Instead, it has always been a contract between the sexes to team up and brave the challenging world. Men were the protectors who went out into the harsh world for resources, and women created the safety and comfort of the home where the man could retreat and they could raise children together. That was always the purpose of marriage, stability through partnership. It's on the bedrock of this partnership that every community is formed and every nation has stood. This is why these calls for the government to solve so many social problems has become so loud. It's because right now in our nation, our sense of community is so weak. And that's because our families are so weak. And that's because our marriages are so weak. As of 2024, only 47% of households are headed up by a married couple, which is down from 79% in 1949. And 1 in 4 Americans, that's 91 million people, live alone. No wonder mental health, self-harm, and substance abuse are on the rise. Human beings were not meant to be alone. We were meant to live in families, to be part of communities, to find meaning through responsibility to others. And paternity support for women wasn't supposed to be funded by the government. No, instead, men were called upon to step up and provide for their families, since fatherhood was considered just as sacred a duty as motherhood. But feminism believes that dependence is oppression, obligation is oppression, responsibility is oppression, that what the individual, particularly a woman, is entitled to is a life that is completely unhooked from others, with no one to answer to, with no one to care for, and no one who truly needs her. Meanwhile, all of her needs should be met by a non-judgmental government. But that is not liberation. It's actually slow spiritual decay. There is this momentary pleasure of knowing that you have no responsibilities, but that pleasure comes at the price of purpose. And all that's left at the end of all of that pleasure is loneliness. There are plenty of imperfections in marriage, and that's expected because people themselves are imperfect. But when it's done correctly, when the two people are oriented correctly, marriage gives people a life of purpose, stability, and love. And children offer this path of rebirth, continuity, and meaning. I'm not saying that women shouldn't work. If that's what calls to you, absolutely you should. All I'm saying is that you should not sacrifice your family life at the altar of your career. Because the truth is that meaning comes from being needed, from forming bonds, from creating family and community. And none of that is possible without self-sacrifice. And also sacrificing your independence. But in exchange for that price, you get the opportunity to build something so much bigger than yourself.